out there. I want to have more. I want to share more, but I'm really blocked because of Trump, ISIS. I'm serious. How have I created that?
How have you created your blockage?
No, how have I participated in creating the social reality of the time where I've chosen?
All of you are born into contrast. And the contrast is a good thing, not a bad thing. But once you have sifted and deciphered what you prefer, then you have to give your attention to what you prefer, not what you don't prefer. So you create your blockage by giving your attention to what you don't prefer. I mean, it's so much more simple than you realize. It feels like you're being controlled by the existence of something else. In the early days, we used to offer a silly analogy, but it really is appropriate here. We say it's like going to the kitchen and deciding that you're going to make something specific, like an apple pie. And so while all of the ingredients for your pie are there are a lot of other ingredients there that you don't want in that pie, like Tabasco sauce and so on. And we say, just don't put it in your pie. And you say, but it exists, and it is bothering me. It exists, and it's going to get in my pie. We say, no, it isn't unless you put it there. You say, but its very existence makes it probable that it's going to end up messing up my pie. And we say, no, it isn't. Get your attention off of it. It can't get in your pie if you don't put it in your pie. Then you say, but it's affecting my nation, or it's affecting my world. And we say, you have so much more control over your world within your world than you are exercising. And we know there's a very conditional, very well practiced stream of thought that goes something like, in order for me to have my well-being, I have to control those that I disagree with. And we say, how's that working out for any of you? You see, only those who are in battle are really co-creating that. You don't need to join the battle. And we promise you, their battles will not overtake you if you do not give your undivided attention to them. And then, of course, they will overtake you by blocking you from all the well-being that is raining down on you, that you are disallowing because you're focused there. Every now and again, Esther's annoyed at this conversation because she'll say, Abraham, clearly you need more information about this. I'm certain that if you had been watching CNN with me, you would understand why I feel this way. And we say, and that's exactly why we don't watch CNN with you. We don't want to feel that way. We don't want to feel that way. So when you give your attention to it, this was a question that our friend asked earlier. Do I contribute to the unwanted by giving my attention to? Well, of course you do. You contribute to that stream. That's the way that you become part of it. In other words, you can't think a thought without projecting a thought that becomes an entity that law of attraction can gather. In other words, that's how those rivers and streams happen. But no one need be influenced by anything, no matter how big it is, if you understand the power of your alignment. There is such leverage in aligning with who you are. And only those who haven't figured out how to align with who they are worry about what's going on with others who seem to be having power about something. Now, we know you heard that in terms of the laws of the universe. We know that intellectually that makes sense to you. That in terms of the psychology of what we know about the law of attraction, that it makes sense to you. But we also know that it is more difficult for you to experience it on a practical basis. But we promise you that you can't get to where you want to be by pushing against what you don't want. There's a war against poverty, and war against drugs, and war against AIDS, and war against cancer, and war against this, war against terror, war against, and all of those things that there are wars against are getting bigger. They will never overtake everything, because you may like this and you may not. We do. More new ones are being born every day who dilute the well-being that you've pinched off. So plants, animals, babies, non-physical, those like you who tune in, are all allowing the well-being to flow. The well-being is so dominant that it is ridiculous to talk about the pockets of not well-being. Even with things happening with the predominance that they seem to be happening in your world. It is minutia in comparison with the well-being. Just talking about the sun come up in the morning is way more than anything that any of you could talk about that you're pushing against ever, you see. So what happens, and we know it feels big, you find something, you focus upon it, and you use that as your excuse to pinch yourself off from the well-being, and then you don't feel good, and then it feels like that has to be stopped so that you can feel better again. And we say, don't go there. Don't go there, because there will always be another and another and another. There's always going to be something, if that's the way you live, something else you got to stop, and something else you got to stop, and something else you got to stop, until you live in fear of what the next thing's going to be, that's going to come up, that's going to take away your well-being. And nothing is coming up that is taking away your well-being other than your attention to things that don't allow you to get into the receptive mode of your well-being.
So I'm not responsible for the Holocaust. I'm not responsible.
Oh, no, that you are. You and you alone. You're not responsible for anything other than your connection. You're responsible for what you are offering. And you feel in the moment your alignment or not. But your not alignment is not punishment. Your not alignment is not punishment. It's just relational. In other words, that's what we meant earlier when we said you could not feel this bad if you were not so good. If you were not pure positive energy, you would not feel the discord of that separation that you are affecting by your attention to things and your belief that you've got to control them. Right. Just think about the world in general and feel the preponderance of good things that you could focus upon. And we know there are so many of you, like you, who have been made to feel responsible. All it takes is an adult or two who say to you, you need to stop that, because you can see with your own eyes, they are unhappy with your behavior. And so you must be the reason for their unhappiness, when you are not. Their unhappiness is about their misunderstanding. Their unhappiness is about their inability to connect with source. It's about them using you as their excuse to not feel good, you see. And so we get it, how you are called away from your own connection, because there are those up close that you can hear and see and smell and taste and touch who are holding you responsible for how they feel, because they don't know what they're doing. They've got a guidance system within them, but they misunderstand it. They are pure positive energy and they don't know it. And in their outrageous discord, they make you feel responsible for their discord. You need to do something. And furthermore, there's a Holocaust and it's your fault that there's AIDS going on, and it's also your fault. Now it's ISIS. If you weren't thinking those thoughts, you see, and we say, there are those who are having their co-creations in the way they're having their co-creations. And all of you get to choose how you co-create with others. But what happens, so many don't catch their co-creation at the early subtle stages. They get momentum going, and then they get called into this thought and into this thought and into this conversation, into this conversation, and in this behavior. And it's just the natural momentum of thought, law of attraction, causes it to come about. It's because you have not discerned early where you are in terms of which receptive mode that you are being inspired by. And it's all right. We don't say these things to make you feel condemnation of those who don't know, because every one of them are being called through their resistance to a better feeling place. And eventually everyone will be called all the way through the resistance, because as you reemerge into non-physical, you will be pure positive energy. No matter what the others who stay behind want to name you and call you, you still will reemerge into pure positive non-physical energy, you see. So we just don't think you should have to croak to let go of your resistance.
In some way, is the time that I choose to manifest on the planet, does it reflect, does the collective destiny reflect in some way my personal desires that I...
Yes. And that's why that destiny is more in your control than you know. It's sort of like, now this is a scanty and weird analogy, but you're going to like it. It's sort of like Esther was attempting to upload a sound file through the internet in this hotel. And depending upon how many other people were utilizing the system at the same time, her Dropbox would tell her, you have 27 minutes left to upload this file. And then the next time she looked, it would say, you have 4 days left. And of course, Esther didn't believe it would be 4 days, but it also wasn't 27 minutes. Sometimes you are in this moment because of what's going on vibrationally. In this moment, you have many, many years of joyful probability out there ahead of you. And sometimes in your greatest resistance, you got like a day and a half. It's what we're wanting to demonstrate with this analogy, is that everything is about what you're doing right here and now in relationship with who you really are. And since that's such a changing thing, no one can accurately describe anyone's destiny, because it is all determined in this moment. This is where all of your power is. That's why with our friend earlier, we didn't want to go too far into her struggle. We don't want to hear too much of what had gone wrong and what she'd been dealing with, even to come to or tout her joyful now. And so it's just now. It's just now in your relationship with what you want and how open that is. And if you've got your valve wide open, if you're free flowing and contrast is showing up and you're lining up and contrast is showing up and you're lining up and contrast is showing up, then you get this momentum of staying long and healthy and happy and vital and alive. But it's only you that pinch yourself off from those resources, you see. So there's no destiny that's been predetermined. You're determining it now. 4 days, 23 minutes, 4 days, 23 minutes, 4 days, 23 minutes, depending on what's going on now. What's happening now in the vibrational frequency? Now. It's interesting, isn't it? So just look at yourself collectively a little bit. And think about some of the statistics that we don't call your attention to very often, because most of them are really slanted in the direction of somebody who gathered them, who has a point they want to make with you. But the longevity of the human race is much more than it has been. You see, when you read those old biblical accountings, they were not using years the way you are. You are at your longest longevity as a human species now. And yet, you have so many more things that you're pushing about and worrying about. Your Facebook has your nose in everybody's business. I think you should call it Nose Book. And so, even with all these more things for you to push against, still, you are collectively thriving more, because things are getting better and better and better and better and better and better on all fronts. The more you explore, the more contrast you allow yourselves to experience, and the more you ask and the bigger your vortex gets, then the greater the potential for joyous co-creation you have created. But it is an individual decision about how much of that you allow yourself to receive and experience and joyously benefit from. And then you teach through the clarity of that example.
Thank you.
Helpful?
Yes.
Yeah.